And we will go ahead and get started. We have a full agenda today with MaKayla's presentation. Welcome to the Nonprofit Success Lab. My name is Bethany Schultz, and I have the pleasure of serving on the board for Idaho Partners for Good, which hosts the Nonprofit Success Lab. Our mission is to reinvent how people like you and me give our expertise, our funds, and our talents to the nonprofit sector here in Idaho. We develop better, stronger, better equipped nonprofits so that you can do more of what you do best. So often our work ends up in consultancy with business capacity and leadership development. We also have this Nonprofit Success Lab, which is a free resource for you as nonprofits to learn from experts in the field. As today's, we have an expert in HR and benefits that will be sharing with us, but we do leadership development, business capacity, strategic planning, board initiatives, and things like that. And so we're going to jump right in with MaKayla. MaKayla is a benefit consultant based here in Boise with 7 years of benefits experience. She has spent the last 5 years as employee benefits specialist at the Standard before joining the Partners Group, bringing expertise in life, disability, leave management, dental, vision, and supplemental health benefits. MaKayla is known for her strong commitment to customer service and her deep understanding of benefits, which help her achieve successful outcomes for her clients. In her current role as a consultant, she focuses on strategic planning, goal execution, and providing ongoing support. She's originally from Portland, Oregon, and graduated from Oregon State University with a BS in marketing. And after spending some time in the Bay Area, she has settled here in Boise and is very happy to call it home. So I'm going to pass it over to you, MaKayla. To start with, MaKayla wants us to be interactive. And so please, as you have questions or comments or ideas of how you do things in your own organization, I invite you to place them in the chat, and then she'll have times when she's going to ask you guys to come off mute and maybe contribute out loud as well as in the comments.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And like Bethany mentioned, please, since it's a smaller group, I would really love participation. I don't want to be talking at you this whole entire time. It's not fun for any of us. So really want it to be an opportunity where we can all learn from each other and talk a little bit more about employee benefits and how we can best position your benefits to meet the needs of your employees, especially when you have tight budgets. So going into the agenda today, we'll talk a little bit about some different benefit trends and how you can best leverage those to your specific needs of your employees. We'll also talk about different generations in the workplace and how to best meet employees where they're at with benefits. So it's going to vary based on age, demographic, and all those different aspects. So how can you meet employees where they're at? And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit more about some cost mitigation strategies. I'm sure a lot of you are already getting into renewal season. I don't know if you're a January 1 or a 10/1, but cost of healthcare continue to rise. So this is a really important issue, especially for you as nonprofits. So hopefully we can give you some different tips on how to address that. So first off, we'll start with top employee needs and how your nonprofit can best meet them. So as we're entering into another world of economic and political uncertainty, we're seeing a lot of employers, especially in the nonprofit sector, facing the increased pressure to support their employees. So for you as nonprofits, this is compounded by tight budgets, fluctuating donor contributions, and really the growing need for services. And on top of that, you have to balance your commitment to your mission with the well-being of your teams. So because of all of this, we've entered into a new era of employee benefits where personalization and empathy are highly valued. So workers are now seeking employers who understand their personal needs, empathize with the challenges, provide benefits that reflect this understanding. So luckily for you all, as a nonprofit, you're uniquely positioned to support employees in this because of your value-based and community-oriented nature. So employees really want more than just that transactional relationship. They want to feel valued and supported. So this is going to mean actively listening to your teams, offering support that goes beyond just that standard benefits package or salary. So today we're going to focus on these top 5 needs, including financial stability, workplace wellness, transparency, technology, And last but not least, values. So starting off with financial stability, this continues to be an issue for really all of us. Even though the economy is seeing some improvement, depending on who you ask, I'm sure we all saw pieces of the debate this past Tuesday, but employees are still considering leaving their jobs due to this financial insecurity. Situation is even more pronounced in the nonprofit sector where your budgets are tight and you might not be able to offer as competitive pay as other industries. And so what's happening is we're seeing that this financial stress is not only affecting the employees in their personal lives, but it's also trickling into their productivity at work. So as you can see here on this slide, this is a really big issue. We're seeing 61% of employees reporting having been distracted at work due to financial stress, and 37% of employees are spending 3 or more hours each week dealing with this. So it's not even outside of work hours, they're focusing on their finances in work too, which is directly impacting their ability to support your missions. So I know it can be difficult to offer competitive salary in some cases, but you can still make differences by being strategic with your benefits. So a great way to start is with your holistic well-being program. And by doing this, you can do different employee surveys to get a pulse of where they're at to understand their specific benefit needs. And then once you understand really what their needs are, this can help tailor support programs that can really make a difference for you. I want to mention, so well-being, I think traditionally is focused on mental health, but there's really so much more that goes into a holistic well-being program with financial health, physical health, social, career. There's so many aspects that make up a well-being program. So it's important to make sure you're including all these different things. And it's likely that if someone is focusing or struggling in one area, that's going to affect them in multiple areas. So a great way to start is by looking at your current program as well. So oftentimes you might not even be aware that you're offering financial resources, such as with your employee assistance program or EAP. They often have some resources available to you that can help employees directly, or it's also a great opportunity for someone to just talk to someone and say, you know what, I'm stressed. I don't know what to do. And just having that place to release the pressure is really great. Another area you might not know you have some financial resources is within your life and disability products. So those will also have different value add resources for financial services, such as will prep. So you don't even have to add anything. It's likely you already have some of these resources available. So looking at your current offering is an inexpensive way to address those needs. And then taking advantage of programs like the Secure 2.0 Act, which offers you the ability to enhance financial security of your employees by matching student debt contributions, 401k, and health saving account contributions as well. So while this might not have a direct impact on their financial stability, it's really going to set them up for success in the future. And then another way you can make help out with the financial stability is making healthcare more affordable. So we'll talk about this later on in the presentation as well. But there's so many different things you can do with your benefits program, whether that being a copay only plan, doing a high deductible health plan. You can also use salary-based contributions or provide larger HSA contributions for lower income staff to help remove some of those financial barriers to healthcare access. So I'm going to pause here, see if there's any questions that came through in the chat. And if not, I have a question for the audience. Do you feel like this is something that your employees are struggling with? And if so, what are some different ways that you're addressing it?
The one question we had was about employee surveys. If you have any employee surveys in mind that could help us get data that we would want about our employee well-being.
Yeah, so there are multiple surveys out there. You can go to third parties, or you can work directly with your benefits partner. They should be able to help you come up with different surveys specific to your needs. So It can be on well-being, it can be directed to benefits, but really the goal would be to work directly with you and see what you're looking for, and then we can help you draft some of those questions. Because we also see if you work with a third party or possibly through your benefits partner, employees are going to answer a little bit more honestly because it's not coming from the employer. And even if a survey says it's anonymous, employees still have that uncertainty of, I don't know, maybe this is still going to get back to my employer. So there are options out there. Anything else before we move on?
That was the only question.
Okay, awesome.
I actually, MaKayla, I hadn't heard of the Secure 2.0 Act. Say a little more.
Yeah, so it's really just to help for employers to be able to contribute to matching what employees are already contributing for, let's say, their 401k, their HSA, and student debt payments as well. And so there's some tax advantages by doing that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. You're right. So moving on to mental health and well-being in the workplace. This really has been a hot topic for a really long time now, and especially ever since COVID-19 happened, I think there's been an even bigger spotlight on it. But despite a lot of increased investments in mental health benefits, employees are still struggling and they need more support. So this slide here, it might be a little bit bleak, but I think it's important to really show what employees are going through and the fact that they are struggling. So 76% of workers reported at least one mental health condition, 55% of adults with a mental illness received no treatment, and 91% of employees say unmanaged stress directly affects their impact to work. And even worse, for every 350 individuals, there's only one healthcare provider. So this is an access issue, it's a diagnosis issue, and it's a treatment issue. So you have the opportunity to really help employees out here. And they're really looking more for flexibility. So if you offer resources like an EAP or a wellness app, that is a great place to start, but they want flexibility, lighter workloads, and a better work-life balance. And this is all going to start at that organizational level. So it's been shown in statistics, employers with a strong workplace culture outperform those that don't. And if you have a strong culture, that's going to outperform therapy and self-care. Because if you think about it, if an employee goes to work every day, they're happy, they feel valued, they feel like they're important, that's going to have a positive impact on their mental health. Versus if they dread going to work every day, that's going to negatively affect them and then ultimately negatively affect your workforce. So really, wellness at work is going to require a shift in a mindset. So engaging with employees to understand what flexibility means to them, whether it's through a compressed work week, part-time options, meeting hygiene, or flexible hours, this can really help retain talent and reduce some of that burnout. I know this might be difficult for you in the nonprofit sector where you might not have that flexibility to offer remote work, but I think it's important to just ask what employees need, because then they'll feel more supported and like they have the opportunity to find that schedule that best fits for them. Something else to point out here too with the meeting hygiene, what we see a lot of times is that people aren't taking time off. They get way too stressed out. They're anxious about if they do take time off, what's my inbox going to look like when I return to work? So a small tip here is encouraging them to block out their calendar the day they get back. So there's no outside meetings, there's no noise around that. They can really just sit down, put their head to their computer and get through that inbox without any additional stress. So just a small tip there. Another area we see success in is directly coming from managers. I'll still have a couple more on wellness, but I'm almost done. It's just so important. There's a lot of things we can talk about. But so for managers, it's been said that they have more of an impact on an employee's mental health than that other spouse. So making sure managers have proactive leadership trainings, they're leading with empathy and encouraging employee autonomy really allows employees to be heard and valued. Okay, so that is wellness. Want to pause. Any questions? What are you currently doing to address mental health or well-being in your nonprofits?
I'm going to lean in
Yeah.
and talk a little bit about one of our grantees and how they addressed this issue, and it was really around workplace culture. And so they started just behaving differently, setting different expectations, using meeting times differently. And over the course of the 12 months, they had the lowest staff turnover that they'd ever had because they were paying more attention. They didn't pay them more, they couldn't, but they started paying attention to the culture, the behaviors, the mindsets, the expectations, and supporting people more intentionally.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Blossom. All right, we can move on to the next need here. So you might have seen a lot of buzz recently around transparency and legislation like California and New York coming out with pay transparency laws that are pushing organizations to be more open about pay data. So for you as nonprofits, adopting this pay transparency might not necessarily be about following the law, but it's more about building a culture of trust and openness. So you don't have to post salary ranges in your job postings, but it can also mean creating a clear pathway for career development as well. So you likely struggle with budgeting and offering those higher salaries, but providing that transparency around career advancement can help bridge that gap. Because when employees see that there's an opportunity for growth within the organization, they feel more connected to your mission. And this transparency will also help retain those key employees, which is especially important for you in the nonprofit sector. So I will say, in the state of Idaho, pay transparency is not required. So if you have a job posting, you don't have to post those salary ranges, which again, I know you might not be able to offer the most competitive, but even though it's not required, we're still seeing a lot of employers go this route because a lot of individuals won't apply for jobs if they don't know what the salary is that they're getting into. They don't want to have to go through the interview process to ultimately find out that that salary was a lot lower than they expected. And so having it out there just creates that openness and it creates that trust. And so some key actions here, embedding it in your pay philosophies and career development, and then building the business case. Even if it's not necessarily a requirement in your state, maybe it's something that you want to explore and lean into. So it's going to depend on your values and what really makes the most sense for you as an organization. But there's just some ideas around pay transparency. Any questions on this?
I actually want to flip it on its head, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because here's what I know in the nonprofit sector, that the mindsets of a lot of people who are hiring is they want to try to hook them with the mission before they talk about what the pay is, because they don't want to automatically have people just opt out because it's too low. Because pretty much everything in our nonprofit sector is too low, except for a few, the St. Luke's, St. Al's, the groups like that. So it's not, it is an issue of transparency. I totally, yes. And they have to set a hook so that the person will even consider, good people will consider it. So I do know that that's a tactic, a strategy that is used by a number of nonprofits. I would really be interested in getting Maggie and Crispin's input on that one.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And it is hard in the nonprofit sector. And so you really do have to focus on those values. And at the end of the day, that's why employees want to work for you. They like your mission, they want to give back. So that's great that you have that. So maybe it isn't in the pay transparency around salary, but offering those career development opportunities and giving employees the opportunity to, see where they can be in the next 5 years can be really great for retention as well.
Yeah. Maggie?
Blossom, I totally agree with you, because they're in the nonprofit world, we're always kind of on that projectile of 70% compared to what the real market value is.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you have to find the people that have a passion for being that work. And so finding that key is everything, because if it's about the money, this is not the right field for them to be in. So you have to find your fit. That's how I look at it.
I'd like to add from more of a private sector viewpoint as well. There's this major focus on the type of roles, how much we allocate to certain units, right? So in roles and regarding to budgeting, technical roles, you'll want to be more of the median or meet where the benchmark is. Whereas branding, such as the administrative or the creative services type of jobs, are more about value-based versus technical hard skills. And that is where you can really have a lot of flexibility about career growth, the impact on the community, impact for the unit, and values and mission, and etc. But on more of the technical side, it seems like both from in the higher ed sector and in the private sector, you'll want to allocate more of your pay towards that, because those are hard technical skills that are much more competitive out there. And so that's from my experience as far as managing budget and compensation reviews from a private sector, and then also doing performance reviews and compensation reviews for higher ed.
Thank you for that. That was a great discussion. So every industry is going to be different and have their own needs around these things. So it's interesting hearing what you're actually doing in your organizations. So moving on here, we'll talk a little bit more about technology and what that means. So I don't know about you, but it feels like AI is kind of the new buzzword, and everything that's coming out has something to do with AI. I know Apple has their new product out there. You have ChatGPT, OpenAI, like you can't even keep track of it. So a lot of employers, and especially employees, are feeling a little bit apprehensive of what this means. Because is it going to affect their job security? What's that going to look like? And if you're kind of in that mindset, you're not alone, because only about 11% of employers feel truly prepared for the impact of AI. But I think this is an opportunity for you to embrace it and really focus on those efficiencies that it can provide. So it can automate a lot of routine tasks to free up your staff to focus on that mission critical work. So streamlining administrative tasks or helping with engagement strategies, allowing your employees to focus more on that direct service and innovation. So here we have what we're going to see AI really more in the benefits world. So with benefit navigation and customer service, you're going to see a lot more bots out there. Something we're excited about is going to be an AI platform specific for employers. So imagine having your employers type in a question, what are my maternity guidelines? And then that chatbot is going to essentially shoot back from your policy handbook and give the employees an answer that's direct from your policy, rather than what the process probably currently is. That employee comes to you, and then you have to go search into your handbook and then give it back to the employee. So that causes a lot of time. So different efficiencies like that, we're really excited to see. And it's not just about specific policies for your organization. It can also be specific for benefits as well. So if they have any questions around their benefits, we'll also see a lot of customization here too. So it'll give personalized benefit information for employees, especially during open enrollment, because going back to what we'll talk about here shortly about different generations, each employee is going to be a little bit different in what they're looking for. I'm going to have different benefit needs than someone who maybe has 3 kids and is married. So having that personalization is super cool as well. And then we'll also have some advanced analytics when it comes to healthcare data. So this is going to allow us to make more educated decisions around healthcare and hopefully help drive down some of those costs that we're seeing. And then lastly, really around communication. So this goes back to the efficiencies of everything. And if you can send out something to your employees about open enrollment, you can do that. And I think this is where a donor strategy could fit in as well too. So if you don't know what to say to your donors, but you're trying to get some more money in, maybe use those ChatGPT or something like that to help you come up with an email that's going to be effective. And also think of how much time that's going to save you rather than you sitting at your desk working on an email for about 30 minutes. So we'll pause here. Are any of you currently using AI, or is this something you're excited about? Yeah. I personally use it as well. I think ChatGPT, I have it up on my web page all the time. It's a great resource and really helps with a lot of emails. So, all right. So next slide, the last trend we have here before moving on. But today's employees, especially those in the nonprofit sector, care deeply about ESG, living wages, DEI, social justice, and sustainability. So employees want to see their organization's values reflected in its day-to-day practices. By aligning these values with what your employees care about, you can not only meet their expectations, but also strengthen your mission. So looking at these different points here, this first one, I think we kind of talked about it in that pay transparency slide, but lead with your values. So your employees want to work for you because of what you do. So I think if you really lean into this, you're going to have a better engaged workforce, and everybody is going to be supportive of your mission. And that really allows you to just do better work. Going back to surveys, collecting data to understand issues, and then developing a strategy on how to best meet those specific needs of your employees. Support living wage by embracing new hourly pay strategies. This one might be a little bit difficult, but it's always something that you can think about. And then providing sustainable investment options. So what we're seeing now is a lot of employees, they care about where their 401k is being invested, and they want it to be invested in companies that care about ESG, DEI, so all those different initiatives. And then family planning benefits, childcare services. We're seeing a lot of employees right now in what we call a sandwich generation. So they have their parents living with them. They still might have kids under their home. And so offering elder care services is a great benefit for those employees that are juggling so much. So just to have that extra support, whether it's with their parents or having the childcare services, are some great benefits. And then I think there's been a big emphasis on women's health, especially around reproductive, but men also have their specific health needs too. So making sure you address that makes sure your program is inclusive of everyone, which is really the key. And then this last one here, I think, is interesting and something that we'll need to kind of keep our finger on. So preparing your health program for the impact of climate change. And so what I mean by that is, with everything going on in the world, there's global warming, you have wildfires, infectious diseases. Those are all going to have an impact on your employees' health, and we might not know what the long-term effects are yet, but it's something to be aware of. So whether it's heat exhaustion, I don't know about you all, but the smoke that we've had over the past couple of weeks or months, it feels like, I feel like we can't even leave our house, but I'm congested. And, is that going to affect us in the long term? And then being prepared if another COVID-19 happens, what's that going to look like? So you might not necessarily have to do anything right this very second, but just keeping it in mind so that you can be prepared for when those start to come out. So any questions on values?
I just chatted with Crispin to just see if he's with Smart Growth Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wondered if you had any thoughts about that, Crispin, specific to the impact of climate change and health benefits.
Not specifically. I know the smoke has been really getting to me lately too, but I'm just trying to drink in as much as I can. I'm very new to the nonprofit world after spending the better part of the past decade in government, so not having too much impact on the overall benefits package, but now leading the small nonprofit, trying to get things right the first time before I start bringing people on board.
Yeah. And so I'm curious just about all these trends that we just talked about. Are there any that maybe surprised you, or did you have any aha moments where, okay, maybe this is an area where we can make an impact for our workforce?
One sort of value system that I sort of carry in my thinking through uh, wages and time spent at work. I like the trend that I'm seeing of 4-day work weeks, especially in the nonprofit world. I'm also sort of the opinion that when I bring someone on board, I bring them on to do a job and pay what I think the job is worth as much as I can. And if someone is able to get the work done in 1 hour a month, I think that work is worth the same amount as someone who would take, 40 hours a week, 4 weeks to do the same job. So sort of leading that way, the very flexible sort of schedule, just as long as there is time for getting all the job done and time for personal and professional growth in driving toward those personal and professional goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great to hear.
My
I do-
university, we just we're working on revising our family leave policy, and when working with the employment lawyer on our policy language, they made a comment about, obviously in Idaho we don't have any required family leave
Mhm.
requirements, and we were the first person that organization they've interacted with here in the state of Idaho that was actually has a leave plan. And I don't know how big their constituency and stuff, but it somewhat surprised me that that was seen as an oddity, and maybe a challenge for us in the nonprofit that we pay attention to that area. And ours particular is for both mothers and fathers, adopted parents. We also included pregnancy loss language, which hadn't been there before and has been kind of a gray area in our policy that I think has caused some hurt to our community, and we wanted to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen because of our policy language. But it's making a difference. Even just talking about it makes people around me feel like they're valued and that that time is important. And ultimately, it helps us as an organization if we're helping our employees take care of their families.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. That makes me really excited. And like you said, it just makes employees feel valued, and that's really what's most important. So it doesn't have to necessarily be direct changes to your benefits program, but it can be around policies, procedures, offering that flexibility, like Crispin mentioned too. And unfortunately, I think Idaho, we're last to adopt a lot of things here. So it's going to be a slow adoption of those family medical leaves, offering more generous maternity leave as well. But if you have the ability to do this, I think this is a great way to really increase your benefits package and just HR practices in general.
We have a few minutes. I'd like to share an example on that.
Yeah.
So I worked at a small startup, and we have roughly about 30 employees in the United States. And so as we evaluate what to do around leave programs, as one of the employee went on maternity or was looking to go on maternity leave, we benchmarked it, right? We understood as far as what are the big Fortune 500 companies are doing, and then what are we required to do? And as you mentioned, we're not required to provide that in the state of Idaho. However, state employees under Governor Little are provided benefit leave for or parental leave. And so as we review that and understand what can we actually budget for, at that time frame, we couldn't budget for much. However, as we dig deeper into the disability benefits of our insurance, we realize that employees can claim short-term disability for pregnancies. And so this is more of the women, not certain for the men, but they can claim 6 weeks of disabilities for a natural birth, or up to 8 weeks if it's a C-section. And so we incorporate that plan with some flexibilities on their PTO and sick time. And together, the organization was able to provide a 12 weeks leave in which only 2 of those weeks were unpaid. Similarly to the higher ed as well, but based on my time at Boise State, there was this great program called shared leave. And so when I started there, I was pregnant with my first child, but being a brand new classified employee, I did not have much time to take off. So I had the minimum of the 6 weeks or the FMLA, but I didn't have much to cover for paid leave, right? And so that was a strain. However, all of my colleagues, even from other units around the campuses, pulled together and donated sick time for me in order for me to maintain a healthy budget or finances as I was offered 12 weeks with my child. And so there's a lot of flexibility because you're not required to do much of it in Idaho, but there's so many options and possibilities for you to do and personalize it to employees that by the time that you figure it out, it's even better than what you imagine.
Yeah. No, I think those are great points, and really just goes back to organizational culture. If you have a company that really cares about your employees, that's going to go so much farther than, you know, maybe focusing on not offering a high salary. So those are some really great ideas. I love that. So thank you for sharing. All right, so moving on still, let's look into, so now what these trends mean for each different generation. I'll go through this pretty quick because I do want to get to cost mitigation strategies here. But if we look onto the next slide, it gives a nice layout of what is important to each generation. And so there's a lot going on here, and it's interesting too that by the end of this year, Gen Z is going to take over baby boomers in the workforce. So there's going to be a lot more young employees, and all baby boomers are starting to age out. So as we look at all these different generations, it's important to know what each one values and what their expectations are when it comes to different benefit packages. So looking at that younger generation, they like the student debt payment, some tech solutions, mental health support, while millennials also want that mental health support and some digital resources. They're maybe starting to think more about family planning benefits or care about work-life balance, maybe career development. And then Gen X and baby boomers, slightly more stable. They want more of that traditional benefits plan, but they're also starting to think about, you know, walking off into the sunset and what's my retirement going to look like? And am I prepared if, you know, unfortunately something really bad happens and I get this chronic condition, what's that going to look like for me? So making sure that you do have a diverse benefits package so employees can kind of select the type of healthcare they want, retirement plans, or any added benefits is super important as well. I think it's also good here to mention that you need to focus on what motivates them and also how they best communicate. So I'm always surprised to hear that Gen Z, who grew up in a digital world, tech at their fingertips, they actually prefer an in-office environment because they've grown up in such instability. So from different politics, they grew up in COVID-19 during those really critical roles. They just want a stable office environment and to show up and feel secure versus millennials and Gen X who are maybe prefer that more remote, flexible work hours. And then as far as communication goes, just asking your employees, I think, is important too. So what do they prefer? Do they want to meet in person with you? Is a text okay? I know personally I text a lot, so I'm okay with the text or chat. I typically don't do a lot of phone calls because everything is so digital, but virtual is a great option too. So really just asking what each generation is looking for and wants is a great way to make sure employees feel heard, and also helps with engagement as well. So looking at this, do any of these benefits surprise you, or is this kind of in line with what you think? Yeah, in line. Awesome. Is there a question or no?
A great question from Jung.
Perfect.
So it's, do nonprofits shop around or just push back to brokers and ask them to give them an overall review of different group benefits and how it differs from previous years? maybe maybe you should just ask your question, make sure I represent it well.
Thank you. I was wondering, do NPOs shop around, right? Do we compare different benefits with different brokers, different plans? Do we push back to them and ask them additional questions as far as, can you provide me an overall review of last year versus this year? What's the benefit? What are the changes? And then if we make a change to our dental plan, can we allocate more to the vision plan? Or we notice a lot of our folks are not using the vision benefits. Can we allocate more of the money towards the other medical plans? And can they provide a overall review of what happened last year, what was used, what's not being used, over the last 3 to 5 years? And then kind of provide you additional advice on where can you cut costs or additional savings moving forward? Are those questions being asked? Are we shopping around? Are we utilizing them the way that we should be?
Yeah, so I think that's a great segue into our next topic here for cost mitigation strategies. So thank you, Young, for that. And I think you're absolutely right that nonprofits should be doing that, but they aren't. So I think what we see is a lot of nonprofits are just very stable, they're stagnant, their broker gives them the renewal, and they're just taking these increases. They're not asking the right questions. They're not looking at different solutions, and it's just, they feel like this, you get what you get and you can't throw a fit, which can sometimes be the case, but there really are so many different options that we can look at. But I will say it's going to vary based on each organization. What's your specific population? What are their healthcare needs? What are your current benefits? And, out of that, are there ways that we can improve that? So really, you should be asking your benefits partner these important questions and push back. I mean, it doesn't hurt. You need to advocate for yourselves, and especially with your limited resources and budgets, it's so important to be able to have those conversations, especially during this time when we're facing renewals. So quick question, have any of you gone through the renewal process yet, and have any idea of what your renewals are looking like? Are you willing to share what the increase is if you did get an increase?
Maggie, are you in the middle of yours?
So our year started July 1st. So I did we did a cost analysis. One of the things I introduced this year was 3 different plans for medical with different, and then what we do, so luckily here we have put that value on the benefits for, we pay 100% medical for our employees, which is hard to do in a small nonprofit. Mm-hmm. But that is a commitment we've made, kind of help with the offset of the financial part of it. But so so the rates went up 12% for us. Crazy, right? So it's like, I'm looking at this going, when I put it in the budget, but then I'm like, well, I think I can find a way to find some savings. So we did 3 different options. We did one that what we call a buy up, so they could have a lesser deductible. So it's tailored for different age groups and what those benefits are for each. And that seems to work really, really, really well. And then introduced it a year ago, introduced flexible spending accounts. I'm looking at changing up our retirement benefits. So we are listening to the pulse of our staff, trying to come up with benefits that fit or find the employees where they're at. So that's kind of thing. And I hadn't thought about the family planning, but that is something that probably we will address. We're updating our handbook right now. So good information.
Yeah, so you're not far off. If we go to the next slide here, on average, we really are seeing about 10 to 15% increases, which when you look at small nonprofit groups like yourself, 15% year over year is just not sustainable. And so employers are finding themselves with limited options, and sometimes that means having to pass those costs onto the employees. But by making some plan design changes and thinking a little bit out of the box on some of your medical plans, hopefully that can help mitigate those increases. Because unfortunately, this problem is not going away. There's a supply and demand. So labor shortage with physicians, but the demand is going to continue to increase, which is just going to mean rising healthcare costs. And as healthcare costs rise, so does the cost of living. And we're seeing about 38% of Americans putting off treatment in the past 12 months due to cost. And this is just terrible, terrible news for us. Because if we have employees that aren't seeking the treatment that they need, that's going to cause a lot of other problems down the road. It might turn into a chronic condition. They might have to go on a specialty medication. So that's ultimately going to end up affecting you at renewal time because your claims costs are going to be a lot higher. And then same thing with the pharmacy medication as well, with 1 in 3 employees not being able to afford their medication. So same thing, that's going to cause complications down the road as well, ultimately affecting your healthcare costs. So as we look into 2025 and planning for the years ahead, we don't want a narrow mindset of just the next 12 months. We want to be looking into 3 to 5 year strategies. So you need to find that balance of supporting your bottom line, but also minimizing that burden on your staff. So there are a ton of ways that we can look at different strategies, and every group is going to be different. So what a couple of strategies we'll talk about are great for nonprofits. One might be a little bit newer that's traditionally seen in a large group market, but both are going to be really just to get the gears turning a little bit more. So I know we're kind of running up on time here, so I want to get through these strategies for you. So with high deductible health plans paired with health savings account, this can be a cost-effective option for both you and your employers, or you and your employees with lower premiums. And the HSAs come with great tax advantages that help employees manage those out-of-pocket expenses effectively. So do any of you currently offer a high deductible option with an HSA?
We have, at my organization, I work for Northwest Nazarene University. We've got 3 different healthcare options. One of them is an HSA, and then the other 2 we have varying deductibles that we can choose from.
Okay. Yeah, so we see this as a really great option for nonprofits because they typically come with lower premiums than your traditional PPO plan, which can help with your out-of-pocket spends. So sometimes they can scare employers or employees away because when you hear high deductible, you're like, oh, that sounds, that's going to be way too much cost for me. I can't afford that. But that's why you have a health savings account. So the health savings account is meant to kind of help buy down that deductible and help employees pay with those out-of-pocket expenses. So the HSAs come with great tax advantages for both you as the employer, but also the employee in what we call a triple tax advantage. So the money that they put into this HSA account goes in tax-free. They can take the money out tax-free as well to pay for qualified medical expenses. And then if they don't use those funds and they just want to keep it in that account, then that money grows tax deferred. So what we see sometimes is employees either just contributing and using it for just their immediate healthcare needs. They can use it as kind of a safety net if something really, truly bad happens, or they can also use it as a second retirement plan. So once you reached age 65, any amount in that health savings account is going to be treated as your traditional 401k. So any money that pulls out of that can be used for anything, not just medical expenses, and it's going to be treated as taxable income. So you will get taxed on it, but it'll be just like your typical 401k. And so by offering a high deductible plan too, it actually reduces claims costs because when employees have higher deductibles, they're a lot more thoughtful about their healthcare usage as well. So they might seek that preventive care or maybe use telehealth services more often, which is really important because we want employees to go get their preventive health care because that's going to prevent major problems happening down the line. So we can go to the next slide here. Touch briefly on this. This is just a little bit more about HSAs. So they are individually owned. So if an employee leaves, they can take it with them. And these are really easy to use. Typically, you see it in the form of a debit card. So an employee has a debit card, they go to the pharmacy, they go to CVS to pay for Advil, Band-Aids, really easy to use on medical bills, dental, vision, pharmacy, really whatever they need. And then what you don't spend, you keep. So any funds that they put into the account are going to roll over year over year up until you reach age 65. So next slide, please. So this is just eligibility. In order to be eligible, you have to be on a qualified high deductible plan. So unfortunately, sometimes we see employers offer a high deductible, but it's not a qualified high deductible plan. So just be aware of that when you're looking into these options. Excuse me. And then you can't be covered by any other insurance, not claimed as a dependent. But if you look at this, the minimum deductible here, it's $1,600. So that is actually a really low deductible, sometimes lower than a traditional PPO plan. So there's still some really great benefits to be had here. People just get scared of the word high deductible. You can go to the next slide. This just reiterates the contribution. So generally it's going to be tax advantaged. And as you can see here for 2025, the amount you can contribute every year is going to increase by $150 to $4,300. So every year the employee can contribute up to $4,300 to help pay for those medical expenses. And if you think about it, so the minimum deductible, to offer a plan is $1,650. You have a lot of extra cash on your hands that can just grow and continue to accumulate. So the HSA really is to help with those out-of-pocket expenses when you have a deductible to help you meet your coinsurance level or out-of-pocket maximum. All right, I know I talked a lot there. Any questions on high deductible or HSAs? Awesome. So this next cost mitigation strategy might be a little bit new of a term, because typically we see it for larger employers, but we're starting to see small to mid-size employers offer it because they're sick and tired of dealing with the rate hikes from the insurance carriers. So level funding offers the potential to save on premium costs while minimizing the financial risk typically associated with a self-funded plan. So we're seeing about 42% of employers moving towards a level funded plan. This is obviously a little outdated. It's from 2021. Couldn't find any updated information, but we have to assume that more employees are moving to this type of funding model. Has anyone heard of level funding or familiar with it? Okay, so we will get into it then. So what is level funding? It's kind of like a hybrid between a fully insured plan and a self-funded plan. So in the fully insured model, which I'm guessing all of you are on, 100% of the risk is on the insurer, so the health carrier. In contrast, a self-funded plan shifts the risk back to the employer. So really they're paying for claims coming in, claims going out. Level funding is a balance in between. So it offers the cost savings and plan design flexibility of level funding or self-funding, but keeps the financial risk low, like a fully insured plan. So it's a great way to test the waters for employers if they're interested into getting into self-funding, and really allows employers to kind of bet on themselves. So with a level funded plan, we can move on to the next slide. It is very similar to a fully insured plan, but you get a lot more benefits. So lower premiums, potential cost savings at the end of the year too. So because you have a little bit of skin in the game, at the end of the year, if your plan runs better than expected, any money you spent towards your claims that you didn't use will go back into your pocket. And so you can use that surplus to reinvest into your plan, maybe offer a wellness program, boost your medical plan. You can pocket it, or you can give it back to your employees too, because they helped in making sure that your claims costs stayed low. One example I have a client, about 20 employees, and we took them from fully insured to level funded last year. Throughout the year, the plan ran really well. They were below the expected claims level all year. So they were looking at about a $30,000 surplus, and which is great because they'll get money back at the end of the plan year. But the benefit also of a level funded plan is you have data and information. You're seeing what claims are coming in, and you kind of know where you're at year to year. So come renewal time, this gives you more leverage. So going back to what Young was talking about and really advocating for yourself, you know how your plan is running. In the fully insured market, you have no idea. So any benefit that the plan sees in the fully insured market is going to go back to the insurance carrier. Level funding, any good claims years, that money is coming back to you. And also you can say, hey, Mr. Insurance Carrier, our plan ran really well. So why are we getting this 15% increase? And that's what happened with this group. They were looking at a 15% increase, but we're like, hey, we have this data here. They're running really well. Why are they getting this increase? So we were able to get it down to 7% and then further down to actually a rate reduction, which is kind of unheard of. But I think having data is powerful, and just gives you another kind of lever to pull when you're working in this, healthcare industry that has so many different things going on, allowing you to bet on yourself a little bit more. So I'm going to pause there. I know that was a lot of information and we're kind of running up on time here, but just want to say level funding might not be for everyone, but I think it's an opportunity to really know what's out there and whether or not you do it in the next 2 years, maybe it's a 5-year plan. But working closely with your benefits broker and seeing if it is a good fit, I think is an important place to start. Any questions on that?
We did have a question on what type of organizations are a good fit for this, and maybe it is talking to your broker to figure that out. But do you have like a 30-second response to like what kind of makeup of an organization would be a good fit?
Yeah, so for level funding, it's not really industry specific. It's still more about the makeup of your population. So if you have a lot of younger workers and maybe not as many older employees, then that's going to be a great fit. And people or groups that have low utilization. So what we hear a lot is we have these great benefits, but nobody's using them. And we're just, getting increase after increase. So going to a level funded plan with low utilization also makes a lot of sense. But it really depends. And there's some industries that are better risk than others, but we do see nonprofits moving into this for the cost savings. And again, you're protected at the end of the year too, because you're paying for stop loss insurance. So anything above your expected claims, that's not on you. The stop loss insurance takes in. And then really at the end of the year, if you do have a bad claims year, you're probably going to get an increase on your renewal, but you would get an increase on your renewal in the fully insured market anyways. So it's just a different way to look at things. And I think being educated, knowing what's out there is really important. Any more questions?
A lot of nonprofits, the average size nonprofit does not have an HR person to oversee their benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So given the fact that if they're offering benefits, it's being done by not someone with an HR background.
Sure.
How do we help support nonprofits where that is their reality?
Yeah, I think it goes back to having a strong benefits partner. And really the goal of working with a broker is to have that back end support. So they should be the first person your employees go to, whether it's a claims question, helping with billing, administration. So I think that's really important. And, actually using them too. So oftentimes in small group, people tend to just take the responsibility on for themselves, but it's okay to ask your broker to do some of the work for you. So advocate yourself, ask questions, ask if they can do this. And if they're maybe not willing to, maybe it's time to explore a new partnership.
Yes, very well put. Thank you.
Thank you so much, MaKayla. We'll send out these slides so you have her contact information and information about her services. I just want to highlight that next month our presenter is Connie Miller. She's coming back to talk to us about retaining staff on a tight budget. I think we'll have a lot of alignment with what MaKayla offered us today about employee well-being and how maybe we can increase some benefits, even if it's not necessarily on the healthcare benefit side or traditional benefits. I'm going to launch a quick poll here, which is what we do at the end of every session. If you can give us feedback on your learning today, that would be great. And we'll maybe just hang out here for a couple more minutes if you have any specific questions for MaKayla. I'm going to stop the recording as well.
And I will say,